Hey everyone, this is Thomas Kai with the Student International Business Council here at Benedictine College. Joining me today is my colleague Ian Kai and our guest, Dr. Madeline Rogers, who is a professor at the School of Business here at Benedictine College and actually is overseeing the Student International Business Council right now. Dr. Rogers, thanks so much for joining us today. We're really excited to speak with you about SIBC. We're excited to get a lot of insight on this and talk about how it applies to so many students here at BC and all the benefits of working with it. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation. I look forward to speaking with you.
Yeah, of course. So I guess to start, what is SIBC? Like, what is the Student International Business Council?
Yeah, just like what you were saying, the Student International Business Council, or as you frequently hear it called around campus, SIBC, it's an organization that was started by Frank Potenziani. And he established this organization at Benedictine College, Notre Dame, and the University of San Diego. So these three schools, each one of us has a council. Sometimes we collaborate and we'll do projects together or do events together, and other times we'll go off and kind of do events on our own. It's really an opportunity for students to take all the theories, the concepts, the skills that they've learned in their classes, whether it be marketing, management, accounting, finance, or other, and then to apply it to real world projects.
Yeah, that sounds great. And, I think part of it is, a lot of people wonder about why they should join SIBC because, there is no doubt a commitment that comes with it. But, I've been involved with it for the past year. Ian just recently joined. And, I can speak and say there's a lot of great benefits to joining it. But obviously, I'd love to hear your perspective on the benefits of joining. Like, what are the perks of joining it?
Absolutely. Well, it's been great to have both of you in SIBC doing excellent projects like this. There are a number of different benefits. So one, again, you get to take those theories and concepts and apply it to the real world. So you're not just sitting in class, doing a simulation or hypothetical, which are good, but you're getting to go out and network with business professionals in the community. So it's the local Atchison community, the Kansas community, various states here in the United States, and then even overseas. So we've done projects in New Zealand, Mexico, Dubai, Belize, Austria. So you get a chance to build and make these connections, to work with alumni. We have an event coming up where we're going to have a bunch of alumni come back to campus, and they'll serve on a panel to talk to students about their time at Benedictine College, advice they have for students while they're still at BC, while also providing advice for the transition from, academic life as a student at BC into the real world. And then after that, we'll have a casual tailgate where current students can go ahead and network with these alumni and get to know them. And so getting back to your original question, there are opportunities to network with alumni. There are opportunities to go ahead and work on actual projects. So you're using these theories to do something physical and tangible. And by doing all of those things, it actually, not only is it fun, right? It's a good time. You get a chance to experience the culture in these different countries or cities, but you're also building your resume at the same time. So when you go into an interview with a company, one, they might say on your resume, worked on a project for a company in New Zealand. Well, that's eye-catching. So then you're in the interview and you're having this conversation. Well, you better believe when you're working on these projects, occasionally you're going to run into challenges, whether it's in traveling or transportation or the project itself. You can speak about some of those experiences during the interview. So it helps you to boost your resume. It helps you in the interview process. And then it gives you that experience to look back on. Maybe you're in your first year as an associate somewhere, or maybe even a manager, and you can look back and maybe you've had a similar experience, like, oh, well, when I worked on this project, we tried this and it worked well, or maybe it didn't work well. And now you have ideas to go forward once you're in your career too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think part of this, when I, hear these things, I kind of think of it as almost very similar to an internship in the sense where, when you apply for a job, a lot of places care about, what your field of study is and what it is you've studied, classes you've taken. But a lot of times a big factor is internship work that you've done. And that is because of the hands-on work that you do, the actual experience you get. So in a sense, when you do work with SIBC, you get the opportunity to actually practice what it is you know. And that kind of translates into some real life skills. I mean, obviously directly translates to real life skills, but it shows that you've actually done a lot of work in like the physical world. You've done things with these things you've learned, you've applied them, you understand how they interact with things. And I think this is probably very eye-catching for employers.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. And I love the fact that, you, students like you, right? You understand some of the benefits you get so you can fully utilize that as you launch into your career.
Yeah, definitely. Now, a thing I do want to touch on in with SIBC, this is a detail I guess you wouldn't really know if you weren't in the class, but when you break up into projects here at Benedictine, you get international projects and domestic projects. And I think a big benefit of that is a lot of people don't realize what is entailed with international projects or what is entailed with international work. I know that I didn't really do any work with any international companies or anything like that until I really started doing some stuff with SIBC. And so I think it's a really good chance to look beyond what it is you're doing. I mean, it's one thing to come to school where you've never gone before or to go far away from home. It's a whole other ballgame when you're working like outside of your actual country. Now, I do have a preference towards domestic projects, but there's a lot of great students here that have a preference towards international. And I mean, that's great, especially when you're trying to network outside of the US, get some really good connections outside of the US. I mean, you have some great connections in New Zealand, as you've spoken of before, and I'm sure everybody would love to hear about that. So if you don't mind expanding on that, on top of just, the combination of the projects.
Yeah, fortunately, my 2 years that I spent in New Zealand doing my master's in business administration and doing some marketing consulting for a New Zealand company that sent me over to Australia for a bit allowed me to make some connections. I utilized the skills, right, that you're learning here at BC to network and to make those ties. So even after I came back here to the United States, I was able, during my first year, took the very first year that I was serving as this executive director for the Student International Business Council, I called up some of my colleagues, individuals that were classmates or that I had served on various boards with while I was in New Zealand, explained what SIBC was about, and they were excited, like, yes, send a team over. We would love to meet some of your students. And that first year, we actually had a team of 4 Benedictine students that did a market entry plan for an organization in New Zealand. They were considering entering the US market, and it ended up being about a 70-page or so business plan for them to enter the US market. They identified, one, is it worthwhile? Is the market already saturated here? Would it be profitable? And then if they do enter, what particular region, what part of the country, how to enter into it, what type of advantages would they receive for doing so? So the students drafted this plan, but then they flew over to New Zealand and they presented it to the company's CEO and the senior managers. I love to see students get opportunities like that. And you touched on some of the differences between domestic and international projects. And while you have some similarities, you're right, there are additional challenges, and it's great to see students strive and experience some of those in an educational format at BC, so we can discuss some of the things like time zone differences, right? New Zealand's literally on the other side of the world. And even today, actually earlier today, I was meeting at 8 a.m. this morning, our time, with the student team. We were meeting with our client in Dubai. And he was at the very end of his workday, and my students were, rolling out of bed to get up and get on that meeting and be professional and ready. So students to these projects get experience with that, like the time zone differences, even, culturally, there are some minute differences in how people do businesses, and it varies. Sometimes it's more significant depending on the country that we're going into. And others, like New Zealand, for example, has more westernized society. But that opportunity to build trust and relationships with people overseas and the way that work is done and presented, there's so much that goes into it. And then learning transportation systems in other countries and students working on budgets as we're preparing for some of these trips.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've been with, well, not obviously, but I've been with SIBC for, I think a year now, give or take. And, I've seen a lot of students do work with these international companies. Like I remember last year, exactly like with the project you were speaking about with, I think it was Dubai. I remember they were still working on it. And it's great to see that they're really getting some great strides in that process.